So let's begin. I do have some props standing by. My usual simplified prop system, a chair I took from the dining room, a scarf that I'll use for a belt. I do have blocks here. You can use books if you don't have blocks. So you can have those nearby. If you're sitting cross-legged, change the cross of your legs. Okay, you can get a strap if you want. Go and get it. Go and get it.
I'm going to use a bath towel.
Go get a bath towel.
I'm going to get a strap.
Okay. If you're sitting on a chair, that of course is fine as well. And allow yourself to be here. Before we started, someone asked about letting go. And usually we start talking about letting go once we get into Shavasana. But the truth is there is a letting go in each and every pose. We have to find that letting go. Right? It's the two wings of yoga, like wings of an eagle. One is practice, the work part, and one is what I call it detachment, is the more commonly used definition. Of course, all these Sanskrit words have multiple definitions, but detachment and acceptance for what is. Perfect. Thank you, sweetheart. So as you sit here, can you invite yourself certainly to do the work that we'll do today? Even here as we sit, balancing evenly on the sit bones, releasing through the inner groins, a drawing from the outer knees to the outer hips as you compact the hips. On Tuesday, we were working on the tops of the groins moving away from each other. So the tops of the groins move away from each other, the outer hips move towards each other. And can you also find a detachment to its perfection? So when we talk about letting go, what we're really talking about is an acceptance of what is. It's not an activity. It's not, I'm going to do something so that I can let go. But can you observe the moment, and even in all of its imperfections, which most moments have some wonderful things and some difficult things. So even with the perfect and the imperfect mixed together, or maybe all you're noticing is the imperfect, can you accept it just as it is? Yes, sweetheart. Okay, you can set that up. He has a little Lego camera he's going to set up to take pictures of us. And what is your experience when you stop trying to fix everything? But instead, yes, make an adjustment that needs to be made, and then pause and accept what is here. So find a lengthening through the sideways from your hips to your armpits. Lengthen. Allow the torso to expand and broaden. Then begin to observe and accept whatever's been achieved without judging it. Oh, that was good, that was bad, well, that was better than yesterday, that was not as good as yesterday. Or maybe there are noises around, and there are people running around because you're at home. You're not at the quiet studio where you can shut everything out. The world is in your face, even though you're secluded. Or maybe there's no world and you're feeling too secluded. Without seeking to change any of that, can you invite it in and become friends with what even may be a difficult moment? And if the moment is not difficult, if it's all pure joy and gratitude, then pay attention to it and accept that, just as it is. Notice how even just sitting here, the breath has changed from the beginning of our sitting to now. Observe the breath without forcing a deep breath. Find a welcoming to the breath. Bring your palms together to touch your chest. Thumbs touching your chest. Resist leaning back when you do this. So the shoulders over the hips, front bottom ribs towards the back body. And of course, whatever your body chooses to do today, that is what we accept. That's what we invite in. Letting go is really an inviting in of what's happening now. Close your eyelids from top to bottom. Draw your eyes back and down. Gaze at your heart. Become a witness and an observer of your breath. Let the breath breathe you. And this idea of letting go of acceptance does not mean we can't make any changes. So as you observe the breath, notice where it touches. And notice if there are some spots being untouched. So I'm noticing the breath is mostly filling the chest and it's not touching the back body. So I'm going to kindly, gently, not take a deep breath, but instead gently direct the breath to equally touch the flesh of the back body, the inside. And I can feel that there are parts of the front torso, parts of the back torso that the breath just skips over. I'm going to gently guide it, not away from the places it's touching, but just expanding it to include all of the places, to touch as much surface area as possible. And then with that, observe and accept the results. What did that change in my body, in my mind? And again, you don't need to experience the same things that I experience. But in order to practice that other side, that other wing of the ego, that wing of detachment, you must learn the power of observing what your experience is. Svadhyaya as well, self-study. So we study the self, we detach from the results. And these are necessary components on our path to samadhi, absorption, one of the translations. And then take note of your current experience. We'll chant 3 ohms together. Exhale completely. Deep inhalation. And then pause. Observe. Without those questions we always ask, did I get myself to that place or experience that I was seeking? Instead, taking a moment here to observe what is. Reflecting on any changes that may have taken place. Whether they're pleasant or unpleasant, we treat them equally. And as you lift your sternum towards the ceiling, lower your chin towards your heart. Release your hands onto your thighs with your palms up. With your eyes closed, raise your head. From the back of your head, gently let your eyelids open. And there's no need to jump up and rush and figure out what the next pose is. You get to be here. Experiencing the sit bones on your lift. Experience the breath as it enters your body, your breath as it leaves your body. And can you continue with what we were talking about Tuesday, was certainly lens with letting go, acceptance, detachment, becoming friends with your poses. Can you not seek to fight the poses today to get somewhere? Instead, can you see where your poses are taking you and befriend that experience? Let's start in Adho Mukha Virasana. You'll take your feet together, knees apart. Now, for some, this is quite difficult. So you just take a blanket, place that creates more space. And if that's not enough, certainly you can even take a bolster here. It's quite fine. People are often afraid to do this, or pillows from the couch, right? Have a higher lift there. That's totally fine. And lengthen forward. Now, especially if I have a lift there, going to the floor is just kind of an awkward experience. The whole torso is just going down. So you want to take a lift under the head. Well, that's kind of nice. And if you don't want a lift there, still have a lift for your head is nice. You don't have to have a lift for your head. I mean, you can go to the floor, but sometimes that just forces things a little bit, even for those of us that can do it. And I recommend every once in a while to pull back from your poses, to pull back from your maximum. So if you have a lift nearby, just take a lift. A soft one today. I use blocks too, but maybe a soft one today. So there's a gentle, more gentle support for your head. And before seeking more out of the pose, how much can I really extend here? Can you experience the pose that you've come into? And notice which parts of you are not letting go. And equal, if not perhaps more important to this idea, well, we have to get that length between the hips and the fingertips, right, through the side ribs, armpits, arms, is finding a balance of the sides and finding this friendliness with the pose. So which sit bone is closer to your heel? Or which sit bone has more weight? Or if it's not, maybe it's not the sit bone, but the buttocks. Which part of the buttocks has more pressure on your heel? And by the way, for those that really can't get into this position at all, then you use two chairs, right? So I could just sit here, take another chair in front of me, and that would be child's pose, Adho Mukha Virasana. So find a balance between the buttocks on the heels. Find a balance of the pressure. Which hand has more weight? Or maybe one hand is even pushing into the floor. Stop pushing into the floor and just find an evenness of the two hands on top of the floor. And then as you examine the side ribs and the armpits and the arms, can you adjust and find an evenness on the two sides? And then completely let the skull release. If it's on the floor, release it into the floor. If you have a lift, let it completely release into the lift. And if you're not able to release, so here's the big thing about acceptance. If you're not able to release, observe that and accept that. Today, this part of me is not releasing, and stop fighting it. And it's fascinating what happens when you stop fighting it. You may find that it ever so slightly begins to release. Now from there, come onto your hands and knees and prepare for downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Press down through the ball of the first finger and thumb, rotate the upper arms out. Push into the floor. Lengthen through the inner arms. Don't sink with the torso, but lift your chest up off of the wrists. Turn your toes under, straighten your legs, push into the floor again. Inhale and exhale, come into downward facing dog. If you have a lift there, it might just be enough for your head. You can rest your head onto it. If not, don't worry about it. That's okay. But having a support under your head can be beneficial. But if you didn't use a support, you don't have to come out and get it. Bend your knees just a little bit to lift your sit bones and hips up. And then straighten your legs, not by just pushing the knees back, but begin to take the top of the calf towards the floor, through the heels towards the floor, and the bottom of the hamstring up towards the sit bones. And see if you can find a peacefulness here. How can you befriend this pose? And if it's just all struggle, then accept the struggle. Become friends with the struggle. And of course, you can do this on blocks, chairs. Then look up, walk your feet forward. Have your feet apart. Take them wide today. If you have a sticky mat, take your feet about as wide as the sticky mat. So both the edge of the pinky toe and the edge of the heel are touching the edge of the sticky mat. Simply hold your elbows and take your upper arms in line with your ears. So the arms aren't dangling down, but they're extending up so that the armpits get to open a little bit more. Now, most of us here have the hips behind the heels. That's how we stand here with the legs that are at an angle. So see if you can begin to bring the hips forward so the hips are above the heels, but then you really have to press those thighs back. And lift from the outer knees to the outer hips, compact the hips together, but take those inner groins, lengthen the groins from the knee to the abdomen. There's a lengthening there. And the tops of the groins, move them away from each other. And then you have to take this time to reflect. To observe. To accept. Let your arms go. Take your hands on the floor. Walk your feet back. Downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Press the thigh bones back. The legs are lifting yourself away from the shoulders and wrists. And the top of the calf moves down towards the heels, towards the floor. The bottom of the hamstring lifts up. Okay, sweetheart. Extend through the arms, armpits, and side ribs. Let the skull completely release. And then again, find a place of acceptance. Reflect, svadhyaya, self-study, reflect in your pose. And then accept it, the perfect and the imperfect together. Look up, walk your feet forward. Use the other foot to walk forward first. And again, take your feet wide today. Hold your elbows the opposite way. Upper arms in line or even above your ears. Thigh bones back. So the hips come forward and the thigh bones push back. Lift the outer knees to the outer hips. From the inner knees, lift all the way up towards the inner groins, deep into the body. As the hips come towards each other, the top of the groins move away from each other. And then befriend yourself. Befriend the pose. If there's any tightening in the face, you know you're not befriending your pose. Befriend your pose. Don't see how much you can get out of the pose, but see what the pose is offering you. And gratefully accept it. Now release your hands. Take your hands onto your hips. Take your torso parallel to the floor. Keep the thigh bones pressing back. Too often we give up the pose here as we come out, but coming out of a pose is as important as what you do in the pose. So press the thighs back. Extend the chest forward. Take your elbows towards the ceiling and take the shoulders away from your ears. And maintain all that as you inhale and you come up. And then take your feet hip distance apart. Come into Tadasana. And now is a perfect time to do a check-in with yourself. What's here? What is in my Tadasana? And of course, it doesn't mean there are no adjustments, right? So I noticed it was kind of automatic. I felt the arches of my feet, I felt them a little shortened. So the balls of the toes and the heels close together. So I just started automatically picking them up. So I picked up the heels and extended from the balls of the toes out through the heel and then replaced the heel down to make the arch a little bit longer. So now I have more surface area to balance. And adjusting on the feet, equal weight, outer knees to outer hips, compact the hips together. Inner knees lengthening all the way up to the lower abdomen. Thigh bones pressing back. And that top of the groin moving away from each other, even as the hips move towards each other. And then I get to notice what that did. For me, drew the abdomen in, broaden across the lower back, just release something that was stuck there. That was kind of nice. Of course, it can be different for you. Right? If we were in class in the same room together and I didn't have to mute everyone because it would be chaotic in Zoom, I would ask you, what are you feeling? And a few people would call out what you're feeling. So experience that, please.
I have a question, Jonathan, about the top of the groin.
Yes.
So exactly where is that region? Because the groin, I could see it as going into the pelvis, partly going into the leg. So are we talking about inside the pelvis or at that seam that joins the leg to the pelvis or the pelvic floor?
I'll answer. The struggle with that answer is not just one way. Ultimately, all of it. But here, so if you have a blanket, take a blanket. If you have a towel, take a towel. A pillow I think is going to be a little better if you have a pillow. Let's see. I'm going to use this pillow. But you can certainly use a blanket. Abhijita actually the other day, I'm not going to do it, but she had us take a long blanket all the way from the top to the heels, and then we tied our legs together. So you can see how that separates. But take something in between your legs. And do you see how that something pushes the tops of your thighs away?
Yes, yes.
And it pushes everything away too, right? But you still have to take the outer hips towards each other.
Yes.
And this is for everyone. So hopefully everyone got something. Something is well, this is going to sound strange in a yoga class. Something is between your legs. And there's a squeezing action, but the squeezing is not from the inner thighs or the inner top of the thighs or the inner groins. The inner thighs and the top of the groins are trying to move away from it. But the outer hips and the outer thighs are moving towards it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then from there, lift up through the side ribs, extend through the arms. And you can actually do a mirroring in the arms. So take the inner arms from the armpit to the elbow, move that. The arm itself isn't moving, but move that part towards the outer arm or away from the body, but take the outer arm towards the bone. So really both are going towards the bone, if you think of it, right? So often we'll say, bring the skin to the flesh to the muscle to the bone. So if you think of that, both the inner and outer legs, skin to the flesh to the muscle to the bone of the legs and the arms. So this is an experience of moving the outer layers inward. And take your arms halfway up. You can keep the whatever you have, the pillow, blanket, towel. Sometimes we do it with a block, but that can be harsher sometimes. We're not looking for a harshness today. Rotate the arms up. Watch those ribs. Take the ribs back. Notice if you lost the legs when you started doing the work with the arms. So inner thighs, inner groins away from whatever's between your legs, outer hips towards each other. And then from the armpits, inhale, come up. Take those front ribs to the back body. And again, mirror the arms and the legs. So you have an understanding of what the legs are doing because you have that prop there. But with the arms, take the inner arms outward, the outer arms inward. The arms aren't moving, so it's more of an energy. And for me, when I do that, I feel it right in my kidney band. And that's where the adrenals are. So it's helping the kidneys. It's bringing energy with the adrenals. Of course, I have to bring the front bottom ribs back in order to do that. If I stick the ribs forward, I don't know if you can really see that. If I stick the ribs forward, I don't get it. But if I bring those ribs back and do this work with both the legs and the arms, then I really feel it across this band here. Right? A lot of lower back pain can be fixed just by working differently in the arms and in the legs. Turn your arms out to the sides. Exhale, come down. Interlace your fingers together. Take your right first finger on top. Turn your palms out. Touch just the tips of the thumbs together. Don't press them. They're just touching. Draw those ribs in. Extend through the wrists. Inhale, come up. Now I completely lost the legs because I was moving the arms. So I have to go back. Balance evenly on your feet. Take the inner legs away from your prop. Outer legs, outer hips towards it. Open those armpits. Now this is interesting because the inner arms are out, right? right? The inner arm is facing more out, the outer arm is facing more in, but can you do the same thing? Bring both towards the bone. Bring the inner arms towards the bone, the outer arms towards the bone. And that's going to create more space, perhaps, in the shoulder, or that neck-shoulder connection. Keep the legs steady. Release your arms out to the sides. Takes a lot of awareness to keep the legs doing what they're doing while you're moving other parts of the body. Interlace your fingers the opposite way. Left first finger on top. Turn your palms up. Push the webbing of the fingers together. Inhale, come up. Go after the legs again. Inner legs out, outer legs in. Outer hips in. And then the arms. So they're turned, so that means the inner arms still move towards the bone. The outer arms also then moving towards the bone, so away from the ears. And then release your arms out to the sides, come down. Release the prop that you have. Stand with your feet about hip distance apart, maybe a little closer just to mirror the feeling. So not the very wide one, not the hip bones, but hip sockets. But whatever you need to find ease. If you need them wider for ease, then certainly take them wider. But can you still feel that experience there? We're going to repeat the poses now without the prop there, where you're moving this whole area away. It's especially this top of the groin area, and then the groins actually connect to the abdomen, but even that, so where they connect to the abdomen, it moves away, but that top of the thigh moving away, and even that whole area where the props were moving away. But the outer thighs move towards the bone, the outer hips move towards each other. And as you get that, you still want to maintain, or for me, I have to do this to achieve an equal balance of the feet. If I'm not doing this, I can't balance evenly on my feet. And again, that's me, not you, but you have to do your svadhyaya. You need to do your self-study. So lift up through the side ribs, extend through the arms. Keep the legs, arms up and out to the sides. Watch the legs. So remember, we're not moving the awareness, we're spreading the awareness. Rotate the arms towards the ceiling. Oh, watch those ribs. My ribs started coming forward, and they will. They're not going to stay in when you do this with the arms, but resist them towards the body, and from your armpits, push to come up. Now, don't try and do your maximum. I'm not saying reach up as high as you can. I'm not saying even jam your shoulders down as much as you can. That's a different class. But can you keep those actions of the inner legs moving out, the outer legs moving in, the inner arms moving out, the outer arms moving in, and then find a way to befriend the pose. Find a way to accept, even, oh, that pain is still there. This is not what I believe this pose is supposed to be. Well, we have no idea what the pose is supposed to be. Even BKS Iyengar, his poses changed so dramatically over the span of his life. So what were they supposed to be? Or can you befriend it and find an acceptance for what is here right now without always seeking something different? My arms are getting tired, yours, so I'm not going to fight that action. I'm just going to witness. Oh, they're getting tired. How interesting. What begins to take over when they get tired? Turn your hands out to the side, come down. You know, especially in Iyengar yoga and the way we teach it, it's always, because there is always a further place to go in the pose. It's true, there always is. There are different ways to do the poses. Even Anne over the weekend was doing one of the poses, Uttanasana. She said, I've been doing Iyengar yoga since 1994. I've never done a pose this way. It was Uttanasana, forward bend. She said she never did it in that particular way. There's always a different way to do it. So we're always trying to get more out of the pose. And that's not always beneficial. Interlace your fingers together. Turn your palms out. Still, the legs are spreading, the inner leg spreading apart, the outer legs coming in. Extend through the wrist, inhale, come up. Keep the legs, inner legs moving out, outer legs moving in. And here, the inner arms, which are now facing out, the outer arms are all moving towards the bone of the arm. And instead of, once you do that, instead of just trying to demand more or demand different, what happens when you go, here I am? Become a witness to it instead of the judge of it. We always judge our poses. Become a witness to your pose. Release your arms out to the sides. Come down. Interlace your fingers the opposite way. Turn your palms out. Inner legs out, outer legs in. The thighs do press back. Right? I'm not saying there are no actions to take. There are. Push the webbing of the fingers together. Inhale, come up. Do whatever adjustments you think you need to take. Inner arms towards the bone, outer arms towards the bone. Maybe you're leaning back, so adjust, sure. Shoulders over the hips. I'm not saying don't do that, but once you're there, befriend. Can you discover what the pose is trying to offer you that sometimes we resist? We resist what the pose offers us because we're trying to get more. Can you experience what it's trying to give you right here, right now? And release your arms out to the side. Now check in. Svadhyaya, self-study, reflection is more important than the pose itself. The problem is you can't do it without doing the pose. You have to do the pose. My teacher, one of my teachers used to share what he learned. One of the things he learned, 3 parts of a pose. So as we move to the standing poses, let's think of the 3 parts of the pose. The first part is pose. You go into the pose. Jump your feet apart, turn your feet. Triangle pose, we'll take our hand down. Second part of the pose is repose. Well, that's when we do the adjustments. Thigh back, turn the thigh. You're here in Tadasana. Thighs back, inner thighs out, outer thighs in, right? Repose. Third part is reflect. So often we just do pose, then repose, and then sometimes we repeat. Repose, 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 come out. We forget the reflection part. So I want you to think of these 3 parts of the pose. Pose, repose, reflect. Take your feet together. Fingertips up, bend your legs, jump or step your feet apart. So even here, this is an interim part of the pose, but repose. Balance evenly on the feet. Lengthen from the inner knees all the way up through the groin to the lower abdomen. That top, imagine, so now that prop you have is wider, but it's still, this whole area is pushing away, but it's still outer knees to outer hips, and there's a compaction of the outer leg. Skin to the flesh, flesh to the muscle, muscle towards the bone. Arm, skin to the flesh, flesh to the muscle, muscle towards the bone. Now reflect. Now we're going to go to the left first. Turn your right foot in, turn your left leg out. Take your front heel in line with your back arch. So we're in pose now. Take the thigh back, press the heel, turn the front thigh out, lift the outer knee to the outer hip. Really both outer knees to outer hips. Reach through the back arm, inhale, exhale, take your left hand down. Take your right hand on your hip. So now we're going to repose. Take your right thigh back to press through the back heel. Turn the front thigh out, lift the outer knee to the outer hip, and really the both outer knees to outer hips will compact the hips together. Lengthen the inner groins, the top of the inner groins moving away from each other, even though the hips compact towards each other. Rotate the torso. You can look straight ahead, perhaps your head looks up, and then extend your arm up. So now we are done reposing. Our job now is solely to reflect. Reach through the arm, pull yourself up and out, parallel your feet. Take your hands on your hips. Reflect. The sides feel very different to me. Now, one thing that we tend to do when we reflect is we judge. Even I just judge now. Well, they feel different. I didn't go towards good or bad, but I was judging. So see if you can resist judging and seek befriending. Befriend whatever is there. Extend your arms. Turn your left foot in, right leg out. Front heel in line with your back arch. Press the back heel. So the back thigh moves back as you press the back heel. Turn the front thigh. Lift both outer knees to outer hips. Reach through the back arm as you come down. Inhale, exhale, come down. Take your left hand on your hip. That's pose. Now we repose. Take the back thigh back, press into the heel. Turn the front thigh out, draw both outer knees to outer hips. Rotate the torso without turning it into a back bend. So don't just lean way back, right? Imagine you're leaning against the wall. Rotate the torso. Your head can look forward, your head can look up, depending on the turn of your torso. Extend the arm up. Now reflect. And maybe you can go deeper than just reflecting. Maybe you can actually befriend. Befriend your pose. Befriend the perfect, befriend the imperfect. Don't try and change everything. Observe what's there and practice acceptance for this pose, this moment, this experience. Now pull with the arm, resist with the opposite arm. Pull yourself up and out, parallel your feet. Jump or step your feet together. Reflect. Right, often this is the point where there's now a waiting. Well, what's next? When do we go into the next pose? You are in a pose. It is called Tadasana, mountain pose. And it's a perfect time for Svadhyaya, reflection between poses. Now for this next one, Utthita Pardha Konasana, if you want to take a couple blocks on either side, you can. Oh, this is the Lego camera that Matteo put out so he can record us. He makes me laugh. And if you don't have blocks, first of all, you don't need them. You can use books. And if you don't have anything, I will show you how to do it without anything. It's totally fine. And you know what? Everybody uses a high block. Everybody uses a high block. Even those of you, if you're using a block, use a high block. If you're using books, you have an extra book nearby, put it on top. And if you don't have anything, again, don't worry about it. Fingertips up, bend your legs, jump or step. Again, repose here. Outer knees to outer hips, balance evenly on the feet. Right, for me, I have to get that action. Otherwise, this hip tends to go out. So my weight is on here. So I can adjust, but what am I really doing? For me, I have to lift the outer knees to the outer hips, compact those hips, but lengthening the groins, moving the groins away from each other. And now there's actually an even balance of the feet. So I had to adjust everything up here in order to create what I needed in the feet. Extend the arms. Move the skin to the flesh to the muscle to the bone in the arms and legs. Torso as well, by the way. Turn your left leg in, right leg in, left leg out. We're going to the left first today. Take the back thigh back, press into the heel, turn the front thigh out, lift both outer knees to outer hips. Now reach through your back arm and bend the leg. It's a 90-degree angle, knee over the ankle, thigh parallel to the floor. And then if you don't have a prop, you just take your forearm or your elbow onto your thigh. That's fine. If you have the prop, then just take your hand. And notice I'm pretty high up. There's not much difference here. So we're going for the high version. Then take your hand on your hip. So now we're in the pose. Now we need to repose. This back thigh moves back from the hip, press down through the outer rim of the heel. You want to keep this knee over the ankle. If you have replacement hips, don't hurt your hip here. Your hip is going to be a little out. If you have your original hips, then you seek this right buttock forward. There's an elongation of the groin here. The groins move away from each other, outer knees to outer hips. That's all still there. And then find that rotation of the torso. Now extend the arm up, rotate it, reach up, and extend through the arm. Press the heel, extend through the arm. So that's pose. Then we reposed. Now we reflect. And not, I hate this pose. This is one of my least favorite poses. Not that reflection, but just reflecting. What is here now? How does my breath flow through the body? How is my breath flowing through the body? Where is the breath? And can you even befriend this, even the parts you don't like? And then reach through the arm, pull yourself up and out. Parallel your feet, take your hands on your hips. Or maybe you liked it, right? I could be projecting. The truth is I really like this pose now, but in my early years of yoga, it was one of my most hated poses. But I learned to befriend it, and now it's one of my best friends. So if you love this pose, tell it you love it, befriend it. And if you're struggling, befriend it anyway. Turn your arms up. Turn your left foot in, turn your right leg out. Thigh back thigh back, press the heel, front thigh out, lift the outer knees to the outer hips. Inhale, reach through the back arm as you bend the leg. Exhale again, take the hand down. Move that block right next to your heel, by the way. And then take your left hand on your hip so we can repose. Right thigh back, press into the heel. Left thigh back, press into the heel. Right knee over the ankle and see if you can take that right buttock forward. As you take that back thigh back, the ribs go back. As you take the front hip forward, those ribs go forward, so you're already turning the torso. Head can look forward or up. It'll ultimately be towards the armpit. Then left arm up, rotate it, and reach over your head. Now do whatever final adjustment you might need here. And then observe, reflect, pose, repose, reflect, and befriend. What is your pose giving you? Not what do you want to take from it, not what do you want to demand of it, but what is it giving you? And what does it want from you? Reach through the arm, pull yourself up and out. Parallel your feet. Jump or step your feet together. Fingertips up, bend your legs, just step your feet apart. So if you have blocks, they could be in your way now. So just step your feet apart. Take your hands on your hips. We're doing the same pose again. Turn your right foot in, turn your left leg out. Front heel in line with back arch. But this time, as you do the pose, I don't want you to think of simply bending the leg. I want you to think of taking this left buttock and dropping it down. When you do that, still really draw that back leg, that outer knee to outer hip. So you can do it if you take your hands on your hips, The knee will bend, but don't bend the knee, right? You're dropping the buttock. That will cause the knee to bend. So lift the back outer knee to outer hip, really both outer knees to outer hips, and then drop your buttock down. And then lift your buttock up. And then drop your buttock down. And then lift your buttock up. And then drop your buttock down, right? The knee just happens to bend. It's the only way to drop the buttock down. And then drop the buttock down one more time. Stay there. Lengthen the groins. Move the upper groins away from each other. Really draw those outer knees to outer hips. Extend the arms. Exhale, take your hand down. Left hand on your hip. Maybe sit into it a little bit more, but really draw that back outer knee to outer hip, both outer knees to outer hips, and open those groins. Reposing, right? Extend the arm up, rotate, extend over your ear. Do any last adjustments that your pose is asking of you, and reflect. Reflect and befriend. Pull through the arm, pull yourself up and out. Parallel your feet, hands on hips. Other side, left foot in, right leg out. So again, the knee bends, but you're not bending the knee, you're dropping the buttock. So the back thigh does go back, the front thigh turns out. Really drop both outer knees to outer hips. Especially that back leg we tend to lose when we come forward. So keep that femur bone moving into the hip and bend the front. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. Drop the front buttock. And then lift the front buttock. And then drop the front buttock. And then lift the front buttock. And then drop the front buttock. And then lift the front buttock. Right? You're not paying attention to the knee, just the buttock. So pull that back femur bone into the hip socket, drop the front buttock one more time. Open the groins, outer knees to outer hips, extend the arms. Inhale, exhale, hand on the block, or again, still forearm on your knee is totally fine. Hand on hip. Outer knees to outer hips, both legs. Release the groin, so lengthen the groins, but then that top of the groin, move away from each other. Rotate the torso. Arm up, rotate the arm, extend over your ear. Now reflect. Practice befriending. If you're not befriending, practice befriending. And accept any difficulties that you have with befriending. Reach through the arm, pull yourself up and out. Parallel your feet. Jump or step your feet together. Take your arms out to the sides. Take the inner thighs away from each other. Inner groins away from each other. Draw the outer knees to the outer hips. And as you take the inner thighs away from each other, bring the outer thighs and the outer hips towards each other. Now keep awareness on the legs even as you move the arms. Rotate the arms up. Ribs in. Keep the legs. Extend the arms up. Urdhva Hastasana one more time. So inner legs moving out, outer legs moving in, outer hips moving in. And then again, inner arms moving out, outer arms moving in. Move the skin to the flesh to the muscle to the bone. Arms and legs. How is this different than before? Reflect in your pose. And befriend your pose. Turn your arms out to the sides. Exhale, come down. All right, let's see here. All right, go get, let's get your dining chair. I'm moving the camera. Don't worry, it's a Lego camera, it doesn't really work. All right, so get your dining room chair. We're going to do Virabhadrasana 1, Warrior Pose 1 with the leg lifted. Many of you here who are live anyway have done this before. Some of you may not have. Take your left leg up and hop your back foot back so that your left knee is in line with your left hip, your right leg is in line with your right hip. Don't turn the leg out today. So you're going to have the foot completely straight and the heel is going to come up off of the floor. You do press through the heel, but you don't push it down into the floor. And as you press through the heel, you want to lift that flesh of the front of the back thigh up into the chest. So there's really an opening of this front of the leg here. And if you push the heel down, you lose some of that. So that's why I want the heel lifted up. And instead of really trying to bring it to the floor, you're trying to bring it towards the wall behind you. And as you do that, there's a lifting of the flesh of the front of the back leg right up into your chest and open that front part of the hip. Now for me, when I do this, this front hip tends to lean out to the side. So again, I need to bring that in. So compact the hips together. The inner groins spread, the outer hips compact. Take the front bottom ribs towards the back body. And then extend your arms forward, arms up. You can either look forward or look up, depending on the lift of the spine and side ribs. That's what affects it. Nothing wrong with looking forward. Compact the hips, spread the groins, lift through the side ribs and reach up. And then reflect. Befriend this experience. If you're working maximum, it's hard to befriend. So you have to pull back a little bit. I got out of the pose. I didn't take you out of the pose. If you have to come out, come out. And then take your hands on your hips and release. If you hear some sounds, I think the gardener's here. Switch legs. Take the right leg up. You have to hop this back foot back a little bit, so you do have enough. It's not going to work if you're way up here. You do have to go back a little bit. And the back thigh does turn in. Take that back thigh back. So basically, this part is really pose, right? And hands are on the hips. Now, as we repose, that back thigh turns in. Now the foot is straight. Move the heel towards the wall behind you, not just down. And as you move that heel towards the wall behind you, take the flesh of the front of the back thigh up into your chest. So you're really opening the front of that hip there. Keep your torso squared, ribs in, and then arms forward, arms up. Now keep those hips compact. So my right hip is again going up. So as I draw the outer knees to the outer hips, I have to keep those hips compacted and at the same time release the groins. Move the upper groins away from each other. And then I get what I can, not perfection maybe, or maybe it is, and here we are reflecting and befriending. Maybe even gratitude, what the pose is giving you. Then bring your arms down and take your feet off the chair, Tadasana. But a lot of times there's a frustration, a resistance to what we're not achieving in the pose or not getting from the pose. So instead of that, today, can we reflect on what you are receiving from the pose? Take your right leg up. Hop that left leg up. Hop the right foot back. And even here, so start the correction with the legs here, right? So this hip is pushing out, so I'm going to draw the outer knee to the outer hip, draw that in. But I don't want to push it too much, so I have to do the other leg, draw that outer knee to outer hip, compact the hips. Well, as soon as I do that, I feel my groins squeeze against each other. So then I remember, okay, Abhijita's instructions, take the inner groins away from each other as we compact the hips together. Well, now I just have so much more space in the abdomen. Well, isn't that luscious? Press, even though the heel's not touching the floor, press through the heel to take it towards the wall behind you. And at the same time, take the flesh of the front of the back thigh up into your chest. Now you can just be here. Maybe this is as far as you want to go today and you're going to work the legs, right? Maybe balancing is an issue. Befriend this part of the pose. Or keep those ribs in, arms forward and up. And befriend the pose here. Not what do you want to receive, what are you receiving? And hands down. You can, I get out, I lean forward a little bit with the knee, and then I spring back. And I understand, depending on what's happening in your body, that may be easier or not. So you have to come out the way that's safe for you. But that's a way to do it if you have enough spring there. Other leg. Right leg up. So again, you can do some adjusting here. Before you take the arms up, outer knees to outer hips, both hips, compact those hips together. Again, I immediately, when I do that, I feel that squeezing of the groin. So now I'm gonna spread the groins apart, but maintain the legs. My whole abdomen just softened. It may be different for you. I'm not saying you need to experience what I experience, but can you observe what you are experiencing? Now, I'm gonna press through that back heel towards the wall behind me. Immediately that engages the front of the thigh. Don't do this in the knee, you knee people. Don't do it in the knee, don't jam the knee back. But there's a lifting from the flesh of the front of the back thigh right up into the chest. You can be here, just hands on hips, work those legs. Very beneficial in the abdomen, in the back, in the spine, or arms forward, arms up, keep the ribs in. And wherever you are, whatever stage you chose, reflect, befriend, accept with gratitude what this pose is giving you right now. It's different on this side than the other side. Can you befriend this? And release the hands. However you can come out. I move forward and then I spring a little bit back. Tadasana. Reflect. Take your hands on the chair. Walk both feet back. Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And again, we're not trying to get as much as we can, right? We often use a chair. Well, I can get more extension in the chair. I'm not saying don't get extension. Certainly extend the chair. Extend your torso. Press your thighs back. Lengthen the inner groins. Spread the top of the groins, outer knees to outer hips. So the actions we do are still there. But how do you reflect here now? How can you befriend this? And walk your feet forward. Hands on your hips, inhale, come up. Tadasana, you can keep your legs wide. All right, take your chair. And have the back of the chair facing the camera or the screen or whatever it is. And then you have your left side towards the back of the chair. Square your hips, your knees, and your heels. Lift up to the side ribs. Now in twists, this releasing of the inner groins, which we've been working on today and past days. So there's a lengthening from the knee to the abdomen, and the top of the groins moving away from each other. So imagine that pillow is still there between your legs. It is pushing that top away from each other. The outer hips still draw towards each other, but really those groins releasing away from each other. Lift up through the side ribs, arms up. The legs are more important here, those spread into the groins. Arms out to the side, get the width. And then inhale, exhale, take hold of the sides of the chair. Now, for some of us, because now the torso is moving, the arms are moving, we forget the legs. So those inner thighs begin to move up towards the ceiling. So descend the flesh of the inner thighs as you move those groins away from each other. And as the thighs descend down, lift the torso up. Inhale, exhale completely, and then turn. Don't lose the lift when you exhale. Inhale, elbows up. Exhale completely, turn. Elbows up, shoulders down. Inhale, exhale completely, turn. Now reflect, observe. Befriend. Do not try and get more out of your twist. And in fact, if your face is scrunching, then turn less. Release a little bit. In fact, everyone release a little bit. Get a little less than maximum. And reflect and befriend your pose. Don't try and always get more. Now maintain that lift. Inhale. Exhale, come to center. Keep that lift. And then you just turn yourself around on the chair. See that? You don't even have to get up. You can if you want. Square your hips, knees, heels. Lengthen the groins, spread the groins. That creates so much space in the abdomen when you do that. Arms up. Arms up to the side. Inhale, keep that lift. Exhale, take hold. And then inhale. Exhale completely. Turn. Spread the groins. Inhale, elbows up, shoulders down. Exhale completely. Turn. Inhale. Exhale completely. Turn. If you're, everyone, it doesn't matter if you're at your max or not, everyone pull back a little bit, turn less, and then observe the breath as the breath breathes you. Reflect in your pose, befriend your pose. Inhale, maintain the lift. Exhale, come to center. One last time, turn around. Descend the flesh of the inner thighs, spread the groins, lengthen the groins, spread the groins. Keep that lift. We're not going to lift and extend the arms. Just going to keep that from the spine, lift up through the spine without the help of the arms. Spread in the torso and just take hold of the back of the chair. See what happens when you don't engage the arms. Inhale, exhale completely, turn. Inhale, exhale completely, turn. Inhale, exhale completely, turn. Now pull back just a little bit, lessen, elbows up, shoulders down, and reflect. Befriend. Don't let go, that doesn't work. And accept what is here, the perfect and the imperfect together. On your exhalation, unwind yourself, but keep the lift. Turn around, lost side. Lengthen the groins, descend the flesh of the inner thighs as you spread the groins. Lift up through the torso, widen the torso, and take hold of the sides. Spread those groins. Inhale, elbows up, inhale. Exhale completely, turn. Inhale. Exhale completely. Turn. Inhale. Exhale completely. Turn. Spread the groins. Elbows up, shoulders down. Reflect. Befriend. Maintain the lift. Inhale. Exhale, come to center. Remove the chair. Lie back. Take a blanket underneath your head. Start with your legs bent, feet on the floor. You want that shoulder just to gently touch your shoulders, gently touching underneath that seventh cervical, supporting that. Bend your legs into your chest. Give yourself a hug. Use this opportunity to say something kind to yourself. On your inhalation, take your feet to the floor. Take your hands to the top of the buttocks without doing a pelvic tilt. You're just scooping the flesh of the buttocks towards your heels. Straighten your legs one at a time. Of course, if you need a bolster under your knees, take that. Or you can take your calves on a chair. Take the chair back, take your calves on a chair, that's fine. Find a comfortable place for your arms at about 30-degree angles to your body, but you have to find that for yourself. What has ease to it? What position here would have the most ease to it? And when we first lie back, sometimes we have to get those wiggles out. Something feels weird here or there, or the sides feel different. So adjust, even out the sides. But then at some point, even with the unevenness that is left, you have to accept. You have to accept, this is my Shavasana today. So accept the legs where they are. Even release, where we say release the arms, release the legs. You can't release them. You can allow them to release. You can get out of the way so that they can release. So can you get out of the way so that you can allow your arms and legs to release? Can you get out of the way so you can allow your torso to descend into the Mother Earth? Can you allow your skull to become heavy? See, if we try to do that, we end up pushing it into the floor. And that's not what we're seeking. We just want to allow a surrender to gravity. Allowing your face, your cheeks to soften. You can't soften them, but you can allow them, give permission to them to soften on their own. Allowing the throat to soften and the sides of the neck to let go. All you need to do is get out of the way. Can you allow the brain to withdraw from the bones of the skull? We have nonstop activity, thinking, pushing the brain against the bones of the skull, trying to get more into the brain. If you stop that, the brain will do what it needs to do to restore. So just allow it to withdraw from the skull. And then you get to notice and observe, reflect in that spaciousness between your brain and the bones of your skull. instead of seeking to get somewhere, can you reflect here? Find a reflection in each breath. Reflect. Don't seek a result of the reflection. That's different. Simply reflect, observe, witness, perhaps even befriend the perfect and the imperfect. Shavasana. Deepen the inhalation, lengthen the exhalation. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your nose. Bend your legs, place your feet on the floor with your knees together, feet apart. Take your hands onto your abdomen or onto your chest. When you feel ready, extend your right arm past your right ear, roll to the right. When you feel ready, place your left hand on the floor in front of your heart. Use your left hand in your right elbow. Push to come up chest first, head last. Come up to sitting on a lift like I am, or sit in the chair that's there, that's fine. Your palms together. Draw your eyes back and down as you turn the corners of your lips up. And take a moment here now and reflect in your yoga practice. Befriending this moment, the perfect and the imperfect together. And let's close our practice by chanting one collective Om. Deep inhalation. Gently let your eyes open. Namaste. Bow to the divine within you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan.
You are so welcome. Thank
I
you.
have a question.
Great.
Yes, who has a question?
I do, Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi. I'm confused as to what the inner and outer arm is.
You should have asked before, but this
Well,
is the inner, right? So if your arms are here, this is inner, closer to body. This is outer.
And which one goes to the ear?
Well, when you're here, so this moves away from the ear, this moves towards the ear. When you're here, this moves away from the ear, this moves towards the ear.
Do that again, please.
Whatever's closer to the ear moves away. Whatever is further apart moves towards. This is going to move away. This is going to move towards. And that's for today, right? Sometimes we'll just say, hug your upper arms into your ears. Okay. But really more precise is as the outer arms are coming in, the inner arm is going out. So there's space here.
I might ask you more often.
Does that make sense?
I think so. I'm going to go.
Yeah, raise your arm up. Now, just move it. So the part of your arm that's closer to your ears move away. And the part of your, didn't turn, I didn't say turn. And it's more energetic, right? So the part that's closer to your ear move away. And the parts that are further away move towards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah, it's great.
Jonathan, is it the same when you put it over your head in the pose?
Say it again.
How when you're in the pose where you've bent your knee and you put your arm over your head, is it the same that you've been? How is your arm supposed to be in that pose?
And are you talking about Virabhadrasana?
Yes.
That we did on the chair? Same arms. Urdhva Hastasana arms. Yep.
So, okay.
Same exact arm.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Any questions?
Jonathan,
Yes.
really changed the practice. What came to me from this idea of what we discussed in the beginning of instead of letting go or trying to do an action, what came to me was I have to listen when I'm in the pose. Once I've gotten into the pose, I have to let my body listen to the universe and let the universe tell my body what it has to do. And that created movement in the body. Because I'm always trying to stay static, find that balance, not
There's no
move.
static in yoga.
And there was like waving going on and stuff, just very small, hardly perceptible.
Yeah.
But the word that came through me throughout the practice was listen.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome to yoga. Anybody else? Any questions? All right. We'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so
Bye.
much. We love you. Bye.